Welcome to No Small Games, the indie gaming recap and review podcast. I'm Kate, also known as Cater Blossom.
And I'm Emily. You might also know me online as The Specific Egg.
And we met streaming and playing video games on Twitch.
At No Small Games, we combine our favorite genres to experience everything the indie game world has to offer and share it with all of you. We believe there are no small games, only small game studios.
How are you today, Emily? It's so great to see you.
I'm doing good, Kate. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I actually was so excited to tell you that my little sisters gifted me that Garden Inn game. Garden
that's
Inn
exciting.
exclamation point. So I was actually, right before we sat down to record this, I was playing that and just giving it a little go, and it is quite fun. I'm really enjoying it, and it almost feels like a mobile game, but just a little bit more fleshed out. I think you would really like it because the whole premise is that you are decorating a little office space with different, I think it's called Garden Inn because all of the gardening happens inside, but
It's all
that's just a guess.
indoors.
That's just a
Okay.
yeah. But so far, yeah, all the gardening takes place inside, and then as the days go by, your plants grow. So the whole point of the game is like waiting. So I like it so far, but I just barely opened it. So, but yeah, it's fun. So I'm doing well,
That's
I
so
guess.
fun. Yay! I can't wait to get it. I'm excited to try it out too.
What was your boss battle this week, Emily?
Well, I I feel like I just fought the like big end boss of like a really long game, like a God of War long or like Breath of the Wild long
Uh-huh.
game. I had a technical interview for a new job on Monday, and spent all of the weekend and days prior prepping for it. And I guess this episode comes out far enough in the future that everyone will know by now that I was offered the job and took the offer.
Yay!
So that was my boss battle and also kind of like my big
Yes.
win,
That's amazing. Congratulations on the new job, by the way. That's great. I'm really excited for you, and nothing feels better than getting that sweet, sweet employment.
So true. It's so true. And I'm excited that I think is going to facilitate more focus and work on the podcast. So it's good news all around, I think.
I can't wait to hear more about it. I'm so excited for you. So, I guess that's a positive boss battle. Like you got to the point where you are employed, and that does kind of feel like a big final boss to me is gaining that employment.
Yeah, and it was really freaking
Yes.
hard. And it felt like a lot of many small boss battles and then this big last push. But yeah, I'm happy to be on the other side of it now. What's been your big boss battle this week?
I feel like it's sort of similar to yours, and I think a lot of people don't talk about how exhausting it is applying for jobs, especially when you've got other stuff going on, like stream and freelance clients. And I know you and I both have experience with that, but also I have a full-time job and a part-time job, and it's just been so hard for me to carve out that time to apply for jobs. But I am finally getting somewhere, and I think getting some answers this week about a position that I'm up for. But either way, I should be finding out soon if my contract, actually, tomorrow I'll be finding out if my current contract gets renewed. So I feel that I'm closer to getting some answers, but similar vibes of the boss battle just being, will I get employment? And sort of fine tuning things like resumes and cover letters and applications is just such a long process. So I do feel that I'm past that point now, and that no matter what the outcome is, I can sort of everything's updated now, right? Like my resume and my references. So I feel that I've accomplished a lot just having those things ready to put out into the universe. So same vibes, job stuff being my big boss battle for the week, but I have had the whole week off work, so that's been great. Been doing a lot of resting, a lot of playing games. Finished the very game that we will be speaking about this episode. So lots of games, lots of reading, and lots of rest. So I do feel really lucky, and that this week isn't so stressful for me. So I'm glad to hear we both are having a little bit of an easier time this week.
Me too. That's exciting. Getting answers, I think is the biggest relief in job searching. Just sometimes the waiting is the worst part and you just want to know. So, I'm
Absolutely.
glad that's coming your way soon.
Thank you.
Shall we introduce the game for this episode?
Absolutely. Emily, take it away. Tell the listeners what we're playing this week, or what we played, I guess.
I'm so excited to tell y'all. Developed by Austin, Texas based Hiding Spot Games and published by fellow traveler, Beacon Pines is a cute and creepy adventure set within a mysterious book. Sneak out late, make new friends, uncover hidden truths, and collect words that will change the course of fate. I'm getting chills reading
It's
this.
so good. It's
It's
so
so
good.
good. Beacon Pines is available on Steam, Nintendo Switch, Xbox, and itch.io for 19.99 US dollars. It's Winnie the Pooh meets Twin Peaks. And I'm curious. So this is obviously I just read this. Did you write that last bit or is that like a promotional text of theirs?
The description is just the one from Steam, but the Winnie the Pooh meets Twin Peaks is on their website, on the Hiding Spot Games website,
Interesting.
under their Beacon
Okay.
Pines section. So that's was like self-described Winnie the Pooh meets Twin Peaks, which never thought about it that way. Totally agree though. Totally agree.
I think I do. I'm warming to it. I was really surprised to see Winnie the Pooh. Like Twin Peaks makes total sense because I was saying within the first hour of, because I streamed the whole game, I was saying within the first hour, like, oh wow, I'm just getting the most Twin Peaks vibes from this game. Everything about it is screaming Twin Peaks at me. And it also felt reminiscent of some other TV shows that I really love.
Oh,
Um,
like what? I would love to hear.
I've been thinking about this so much. So like it reminded me a ton of Lost. Just the experience of playing it reminded me of my experience watching Lost when it was still new episodes were airing every single week. It also
Yes.
reminded me a little bit of how I felt watching Pretty Little Liars.
Okay.
Both very like mystery driven, big like twists and turns and cliffhangers at the end of episodes, and kind of leaving you with that feeling at the end of each episode like, oh my God, what did I just watch? What does this all mean? I don't even know what to make of all of this. And so then seeing Winnie the Pooh, I was like, yeah, I guess. Like they're all animals. And
Yeah.
there's this storybook. So I'm just really curious what you think. Like what did you feel like this game evoked in terms of like other shows or books or movies that you've liked?
I honestly I love that you compared it to Lost. I wouldn't think that off the bat, but after you said it, I totally see that. And to be honest, this is so embarrassing. I've never finished Lost, but I love it, but I just don't want it to be over. And I know
That's
it's
okay.
so
Yes.
old at this point, and I still don't know what happens at the end. So, anyway, that's
Trust me, it's better. It's better that way.
it's better that way. Great. So I'm doing it right. But I feel like Winnie the Pooh actually makes a lot of sense to me just based on the setting of Winnie the Pooh and like the 100 Acre Wood. The small town Beacon Pines vibe gave me like that feeling like, oh, I can see Winnie the Pooh parallel. But
Mhm.
also, funnily enough, I was getting Gilmore Girl vibes just from like the small town setting,
Oh,
and
yeah.
like the woods and that. But honestly, I'm not much of a adventure story, mystery story reader. And just for you folks listening, it is a visual novel, but there are a lot of things that make this game a different kind of visual novel than you might be used to, which we'll get into in a bit. But yeah, I definitely felt like small town woods vibes, especially with the farming element and storyline that comes in, and the soil quality and all that stuff reminded me of like a small woodsy New England town. So I definitely got those vibes, but yeah, I'm totally not naturally someone who loves a mystery story or like a figure out who done it type of thing. So I did I'm not as like, absorbed in that genre as maybe some other people are, and also like crime. So, but I did love it, and just, laying down to play the game at night and feeling like I'm just cozying on up to read a story was really nice.
That's cool. Should we describe the plot a little bit for anybody who didn't
Yeah.
play the game yet? I would recommend, because we are going to talk about, I think, some spoilers later.
Yeah.
So if anybody's listening and really wants to play the game and hasn't yet, I'd recommend either checking out, I think we'll post the timestamps in the episode description of
Yes.
we'll like have a hard like cut where it's like this is where we start talking about spoilers. So without giving away any of the end yet, the story is driven around this group of friends who are all about 12 years old. The main character is Luca, who is a young, a 12-year-old uh, deer or elk boy.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's
Elk
animals.
boy.
Elk boy.
They're all
Um,
animals.
so we follow Luca around. You kind of play as Luca. He's 12 years old. He lives in the small town of Beacon Pines. He very sadly, you discover right away, lost his father when he was 6 years old, which made me cry immediately. Um, and lived with his mother until recently. You discover pretty early on that his mother disappeared a few months prior to the start of the game, and he's now living with his grandmother in at home in Beacon Pines. You also kind of follow along with Rolo, who's one of his friends, and Beck. It's Beck, right?
Yeah,
Not Beck.
Beck.
Beck, who is new to Beacon Pines, who just moved with her moms to the town. And it starts as this very innocent little story, and they're kind of describing what they're going to do for their break from school, and Rolo proposes going to investigate the um, factory in town that has been shut down for years, but has just recently kind of experienced some new activity late at night. There's lights, there's sounds coming from this abandoned warehouse factory. And so they go investigate, and immediately it all starts to unravel. Clearly, there's, the Beacon Pines is just this kind of cute, quaint little facade over a ton of really wild stuff that's going on in town. And so they start discovering mystery after mystery, and who is involved, and all this kind of insidious stuff happening in town.
Yes, very much like things are not as they seem sort of vibes. And that's a great way to explain the plot, by the way, Emily. You knocked that out of the park. I also think that I don't know if we want to jump into this yet, but I do want to explain sort of the things about it that makes it different than a normal visual novel, which is that it really is a physical story book that you are sort of writing. Like the narrator of the game is writing the story as you're playing it, and you, the player, are making choices that impact how the story goes. So you're sort of doing that by choosing different would you call them adjectives? Maybe
Or,
sometimes.
yeah, I guess different words. Some are verbs, a lot are
Yeah,
adjectives.
verbs, adjectives. It'll give you the option to choose between different verbs and adjectives to sort of move the story along, but then you can go back and revisit chapters and choose a different word and then see what kind of outcome that choice will get you. So it's very much that you are choosing your own adventure at the same time. The If you choose a word, then maybe the game will end, or maybe the story will end, and the narrator will be like, "Oh, that's not the ending I wanted. Let's go back and try another one." And you can do that for every chapter and every like plot point. So to me, that was really interesting. I had never seen that in a game before. And I was just wondering like what your thoughts were on that and your experience playing with that element to the game.
I really loved that they included this, and of course, a lot of visual novels and games like Until Dawn and The Quarry, and a lot of games involve this sort of decision point, like decision making mechanic where your choice impacts the outcome of the game. The cool thing about Beacon Pines is that all of your choices are displayed as this big tree. And like you said, even if the game sort of ends, which usually ends in like tragedy, you get
Yeah.
to go back and the narrator kind of drives you to go back and make a different choice at a previous branch in the tree. And I really liked that because um with a lot of games like Until Dawn or something where you're making these choices, you only get to see one outcome, one set of decisions and what that leads to. And I don't know that I would go back and play a game like that to see the other outcomes, but with Beacon Pines, it's built in that you actually pretty much go through the entire tree and see every storyline unless you just decide to stop in the middle. But yeah, I really liked that it is built around this idea that you are, by definition, going to be going back and making different choices and seeing what happens.
Yes, I loved that so much. And I've played a lot of visual novels, so for me to me it was so refreshing to have something that was so engaging where you're making choices, but you're not just making choices. Like there are also times where you pick something up and throw it, or you're fishing. There's even like a fishing element to the game. So to me, I thought I really appreciated how the developers put in all these other elements to their really awesome story, because another thing I struggle with visual novels sometimes is I will like button mash through a lot of the dialogue because I find it to be more often than not too long, um but also kind of boring. But with this, with Beacon Pines, I never felt that way. I was just like, oh my gosh, like what's gonna happen next, who's gonna say what next, and I was never like just pressing A on the switch to just get through all of the dialogue. So I think the fact that it had those elements in there of like choose your own adventure, but also sometimes you can fish and sometimes you can throw something at something. And, you know, just the art style when it switches from you navigating the town as Luca to the dialogue and getting like the close up on the characters, that was really interesting to me and like kind of made the game just more exciting. So, fully endorse this style of visual novel for sure.
You mentioned a couple elements of the game that I really loved, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts about more of it. So, you mentioned it is like really visually, physically like in a book. You see in the game like the book open, pages turn. There's writing on the
I'm getting
pages
chills.
that's
I'm
read
getting
by
chills.
that's read by the narrator. Who is that is the only voice acting in the game is the narrator, who's reading sort of passages in between parts of the gameplay where you actually go in and play around as Luca and talk to people and stuff. And I think that the art style is really cool because it does the environments don't really like go extend to the edge of the screen. They're kind of contained almost like
Yeah.
a storybook art, illustration would be. I'm really curious what you thought of the narrator as kind of a character, like as a narrator of the story, but also as a character themselves too.
I think the narrator of the story, like, it's funny. At first, the voice acting, I was like, I don't know, but then it really grew on me. By the end, I was like, oh, that voice actor, like, left it all on the field. So good. But at the beginning, I was like, is this. I think I was just getting used to the story. But I loved that the storyteller was the only voice actor. I actually really liked that. And it kind of reminded me of Animal Crossing, like when the animals talk to each other, because it's like that same like it's like the same thing, but like in a lower register, and the like it's still voice acting, I guess, because each character has a different tone, but it is that like sort of nonsensical speak that they're not really saying the words, but they are making like animal noise. Um, but the yeah, I loved the voice acting, and I loved that the storyteller that was also the writer, fit like physically writing the story, was a part of it. I felt like that really made it exciting for me. And then also what you're mentioning about how when you're not in the dialogue portion that it really does look like a physical book, like a page in a book. I found that to be very immersive when I was playing, because I played this on Switch. So when I was like sitting down and I have a big TV, flex, that's a flex. I have a big TV. I was, I was immersed. I was in Beacon Pines, and yeah, I found that to be so special. I feel that there's a lot of really cool, unique things about this game that I've never seen before.
I agree. I feel like they knocked it out of the park. And I'm so glad to hear you say that you had mixed feelings about the voice acting in the beginning. I thought I was being way harsh when I first heard the voice actor start narrating, and I thought like I just don't know how I feel about this. I don't know. There was just something I couldn't even really describe what it was. I was like, I don't know. But I totally agree. By the end, I was like, oh yeah, this is they nailed it. I I was really invested in there were a couple times where I said on stream like I'm a little worried about our narrator. Like, are they okay?
Have they had water or any food in a while?
I was kind of waiting for a moment where we would discover that actually the narrator was somebody that we had met in the book, in the story.
That's so funny you say that because that never crossed my mind, but I just gasped when you said it. So I was like, that would be so interesting. And also, you mentioned how sort of playing as Luca, but then there's one moment in the game where you're playing as Beck for a moment. And I remember that moment very distinctively because it was only, and maybe that wasn't your experience because maybe it was from one of the cards that I chose or one of the adjectives or verbs that I chose to move the story along. But there's one part where you do play as Beck, who ended up being my favorite character. Um, and I remember just being mentally being like, wait, I've been Luca this whole time, but now I'm playing as Beck. That's so cool. Like, I didn't see that coming. On that note, do you have like a favorite character of the game?
I have a very soft spot for Rolo. Rolo's just such a lovable goofball, and so funny. But I think, and I hate to say this because I I guess the Aquarius in me is like, oh no, I'd like to be more unique than this, but I have the most vanilla answer, which is that I love Luca. I love the main character. I felt so protective of him, and I really felt for him going through all of this loss as like a sort of preteen kid, and just so proud of him by the end, how brave he was, and kind, and what a good friend he was. So I really loved Luca.
I love that you brought up astrology because I wanted to share with you what I think what I think their signs are, being
Tell me, yes.
Luca, Rolo, and Beck. So I think that Luca is either a Gemini or an Aries. Just because Gemini, because he's so smart and like sometimes he does things that you weren't expecting. And can be like very adaptable to many situations and almost like adopt a different attitude based on who he's talking to. But also Aries just because like main character energy, strong, brave. Um, but then I think like Rolo is for sure a Sagittarius just because he's super like loud and all over the place. I could see Leo or Sagittarius, but
Yeah.
more Sagittarius because he's like very up for an adventure and super, I don't want to say obnoxious, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, he's
Um
a very strong personality.
Yeah, and I think Beck is for sure an Aquarius because she's like really smart and very unique and just like has such a cool attitude where I feel like a lot of Aquarius folks that I meet, you included, I just immediately feel like I can be myself around them and I felt like Luca definitely just really trusted Beck right off the bat and it took Rolo a little bit longer to like get comfortable with Beck, but then like I feel like Beck is definitely an Aquarius just because of how folks were just so trusting of Beck. So those were my astrological predictions.
I love that. Now I'm thinking through the rest of the cast and wondering who else.
It's funny because the rest of the cast, I mean, characters, I don't know what we call them. They obviously were great, but they just didn't like when I think about the game, I just think about Luca and Rolo and Beck the most, and Beck was obviously my favorite, so that makes sense. But I also loved like Beck's parents. I still don't understand the motives or the explanation behind like Mr. Nuncreed and whoever that other character was. I don't remember the name. There's Mr. Nuncreed runs the convenience store, right?
Yeah, yeah. The hardware store. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
there's another character that has a ponytail that's like a an older man figure, but I don't remember that character's
The
name.
I think he's the mayor.
The mayor, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
The like just so many other characters didn't make as much of an impression on me as Rolo, Luca, and Beck, but the villain, just the art style of the villain, what's his name? Mr. Kerr.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so scary. Like, great job to the artists. Really scary looking villain. How did you feel about that conveying the personalities through the art style?
Oh, I thought they did an amazing job. And I was a little, honestly, I think I was a little bit skeptical about them all being animals at first.
Me
I
too.
wasn't sure if it was gonna go down like kind of a deviant art kind of like, that
Yeah.
fan servicey route, and it didn't.
Yes,
And
it
I
didn't.
appreciated it was, it did. I see the Winnie the Pooh, more, or you could see the Winnie the Pooh kind of illusion a little bit more in that it's just they're just animals, or like almost like Redwall. I don't know if you read the Redwall books as a
Oh yeah.
kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of that.
They're just
Actually,
animals.
I had a little memory unlock while you were talking about characters because it has been a little while since I played it. I have I don't know if she takes first place away from Luca, but I do have another favorite character who is Dawn, the bat who runs the newspaper stand.
Oh yeah.
And is also sort of an investigative reporter. I love any journalist character. I studied journalism in my master's program,
Emily's like,
so
I see you.
yeah, big fan. Where she wears like a little Sherlock Holmes hat too, and I love mysteries and Sherlock Holmes. So I was like, and she's so cute and smart, and yeah, I really loved her. She was a really fun character.
I like that you picked her because I wouldn't have thought of that. It even took me a minute, but then when you were like, the one that works at the newsstand, I was like, oh yeah, of course. I did just so enjoy this. It took me about 7 hours to, or maybe 6 hours to play through the whole thing. And, I obviously had a different experience playing it than you because I played on my Switch, mostly played on my, formerly mentioned big TV or in bed with my Switch. So I wanted to kind of ask you about what it was like playing it on stream because I know when you were streaming this, it took you like three different streams, I think.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really available to be at those all the way, but by the last one, I was like, I just don't want the game to be spoiled for me since I knew we were going to talk about it. So I would love to hear your experience streaming it and then, like, kind of how your chat got involved a little bit.
I loved streaming it, and I wasn't really sure because I had never streamed a visual novel by myself really before, from multiple, like from beginning to end, for multiple streams. So I was a little bit apprehensive about it and having to voice act so many different characters, but I actually really loved it. I loved the experience. I loved getting to experience the twists and turns and sort of surprises in the story with everyone else. It was fun to look over and see chat kind of losing their minds at the same moment I was. Like, what is happening? What's going on? Um, Something that I really liked, going back to the whole concept of the tree and the decision points,
Mm-hmm.
that I think I would have appreciated playing it on my own, but I think I in particular appreciated playing on stream and sort of getting to talk about the plot with other people in real time. Was that when you reach every like dead end in the plot, every like bad ending, I really liked that they reveal more of the plot to you through those endings. So it never feels like a waste of time. It never feels like I made a mistake by picking that choice over a different choice and getting to this end. It just feels like, okay, I've revealed more of the story, and now I am going into the next branch like better informed about what's going on.
Did you ever let chat decide which choice you were going to make for you?
Yes. Yeah, we I think we voted a couple times
Nice.
because I don't know about you, but at some point it just started to feel very random what was going to be the quote unquote good
Yeah,
path to take. I
same. I
don't
felt
know.
that.
How did you pick paths to take? And I'm curious, at what points did you decide to go back and choose different options at a turning point?
I think in the beginning, I wanted to make sure I had tried every option. So I would go back on the tree and like choose ones that I hadn't chosen before to just see because I was like, yeah, I wanted to just make sure it was like a weird thing where I had just wanted to make sure that I had tried every single option, which is unusual for me because usually I'm like, let's get to the credits. Like, I want to just experience this game in a reasonable amount of time. And I really like to finish. When I get to the credits of a game, I just get this feeling of like, oh my gosh, no matter how I felt about the game, I did that. Like, I finished a game and I can just add it to my list. I don't know. That's maybe like a weird thing about me, but like even if I don't like a game, I'll just be like, "Oh, you're just so close to the credits. Like just keep going." But yeah, I don't know. I do feel that I really enjoyed like making the choices and I went back in the beginning, but then when I was getting closer to the end, like close to chapter 6 and 7 and 8, I I got that feeling back of like wanting to get to an ending, and then I stopped going back to see what all of the different options would bring me. Did you have a similar experience, or was it like more like you were trying to finish it on stream, so you were just going?
So I had the same kind of well, I don't know. So usually I'm a completionist, so I definitely did at different points have the feeling of like, well, I want to go back and try a different option too, just because I want to see what is going to happen if I pick something else. And I think for a while I was for a while I thought that maybe you could reach the end without going through all of the dead ends. But I think maybe during the second of the three streams that I did, I kind of realized that I don't think that the game lets you reach the sort of good ending or like the satisfying resolution ending without going through all the rest of the branches
Mm-hmm.
because you
Mm-hmm.
unlock words like the words that you use to make choices, you unlock them as you go. And so
Yep.
I think the way they've like dispersed them, you actually like can't reach the good ending without really seeing all the bad endings. So by that point I was like, okay, well let's just keep trying. We're going to learn as much as we can. And I think that desire to like not so much reach the end, but like understand what's going on in the plot and like learn more about the mystery started to drive me more to just like let's just pick something, we might have three different options, but like let's just pick one and see where it gets us.
That's funny. It sounds like we had the same experience a little bit there. So, yeah, I really would love to play more games like this, but I think the problem is that they don't really exist. Maybe they do. And I just don't know about them, but I just did feel like this offered something so unique in my collection and definitely something that I would recommend to others just with that like basically just because of what I was explaining earlier and what we've been talking about, like being able to choose things that feel a little bit more meaningful than they do in a normal visual novel. I keep saying normal visual novel, like what even is that? But you know what I mean, where it's like the choices that you made just felt so satisfying to see where that took you.
Are we ready to talk about spoilers? Do you want to
I'm
talk
so
about?
ready. I actually have a
Okay.
question, but I feel like you have one for me too. So I'm going to let you ask me first if you have one.
What was the sort of surprise reveal that like most shocked you or like blew your mind?
I literally
That's
had the
awesome.
same question for you. That's so funny. I mean, it makes sense, but definitely the mom reveal, like the reveal that the grandmother is Luca's mom, actually Luca's mom, and for me that was actually deeply unsettling when I first found that out, but then as the story went on, I began to like accept that that was just the way things had to be. But when it first was revealed, I was like, that is so messed up. Like, why couldn't Luca's mom just be like honest with him and be like, I'm your mom and like this is really messed up, but this is what's happening in our town and this is why I look old and why I have to pretend that I'm your grandma. But I was just like, I don't know. It definitely rubbed me the wrong way in the beginning, but then I guess he's just such a young boy, so they didn't want to, maybe his mom didn't want to like reveal all these dangerous things or put him at risk. So I guess I grew to understood it, but when I found that out, it was like my jaw hit the floor. I was like, "No way, that's his mom." I did not see it coming. What about you?
I had that same experience, and it's interesting that you say it was like a little disturbing because I kind of felt the same way. I actually guessed that she was his mom maybe an
Journalistic
hour or
qualities.
two before it was revealed. I started putting together the clues about like the green goo and what it does to people when like Beck got her like hair
Yes.
turned gray.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Um, but I was similarly like just shocked that that even could be a possibility and like a little like a little disturbed that she'd like lie to her son, make her son, or I guess let her son think that his mom had just vanished, was just like that's such a hard thing to have to do. um I think the thing that like blew my mind the most, and like I struggled to wrap my head around it for a while after having learned it while I was playing the game, was that the entire freaking town was moved from its
Yeah.
original location to someplace else.
That
I
shook me
was
up.
like, what? How? And just the logistics and um that I'm still reeling a little bit from that.
Yeah. It's really disturbing, like the idea of that. And I think that brings up like something that I find really refreshing about this game because I feel like there's a lot of games out there that are like, oh, capitalism is bad. And like, global warming and factory and farming and like fossil fuels, that's all bad. Like, we know. But the way that this game sort of tried to give us that message just felt like really unique to me because I've been thinking a lot about, just because of where I live, I've been thinking about mill towns, and I know um just I like that this game sort of brought in that story in such a unique way. And like the risks, and I think a lot about things in my immediate environment that harm me, you know, like just products that I consume, like in processed foods and processed whatever, and like, skincare, makeup, whatever, like and like the air that I breathe. And I live in a place where there's a bunch of old mills, and some of them still are running, but most of them aren't. And so I liked that they kind of brought that into the game because that feels very relevant to me, because that's something I think about like every single day, like about what in my immediate environment is harming my body and like also my mind. And I just felt that they did that in a cool way. I don't even know if that makes sense, but that's how I felt.
I love that. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that as sort of like a higher message to the story, but yeah, the idea that um sort of those things that can be harmful to a community, both like physical toxins and things, but also harmful agendas and
Yeah.
lies misleading people, can really be coded with this idea of like progress and prosperity, and we're going to help move this community forward. Is really interesting. They did a great job of telling a really like complex and kind of subtle story in a really
Yeah.
like digestible and fun and exciting
So
way.
fun. So fun. I totally agree. And yeah, I did see that as like a big message overall to me, which kind of leads me to ask you about the ending that you got, because when I finished the game last night, I wanted to immediately go back and like pick all the other cards to see what kind of ending, or maybe there's only one true good ending and that's it. I don't know. Or maybe there's like three good true endings to the story. So I'm curious to know, like, if you know the answer to that question and also what ending you got.
So I don't know. It's funny. I think I looked back through the tree right after I'd finished the game and gotten a like quote unquote good ending. And I think I had picked every option that was available to me, except for at the very, very, very end. There were three options you could pick. I picked one, got to sort of the end of the story, and we wrapped up stream at that point. And I have debated about going back and seeing what the other two kind of result in. So the ending that I got was the big reveal that um the founder of this sort of what fertilizer company that had sort of put Beacon Pines on the map a little bit and helped them, with their crops and overall town development. Had discovered this like aging and anti-aging formula and turned himself into a small child so that he could like kind of um lie in wait in the town under the guise of like being a kind of orphan kid who was being taken care of by that family. And he sort of revealed himself, revealed his big plot to kind of take back the town, and then they like splashed the anti-aging stuff on him again and turned him into a baby, which I thought was the funniest thing.
Yes.
Is that the ending you got
Yeah.
as well?
Yeah, well, because I think it's Beck who chooses what to put in the vial. And I chose change, and it was like, oh, like loose change. Like literally Beck put
Yeah.
like loose change in the vial. Did you choose that one too?
I chose that one too. That's
That's
funny that we
so
chose the
funny.
same option.
Yeah, and so I was like, okay. And then he's a baby. All right, that's so funny. It's a little baby defeating the final boss by turning them into a baby. Hilarious.
Always funny. That's never not going to be funny.
Yeah, it was so good. And then it really just ended sweetly with like I think they go to Beck's house and then they go in the phone booth that right? Is that what happens?
Yes. Oh God, now
They
I'm
go in the
having to
phone
remember
booth and
that.
then they go to Luca's father's grave, I think,
Right,
with
and
the
they plant a
tree.
tree. Oh God, that made
Yes,
me that whole
I
his
know.
relationship with his dad and that killed me. I just so many tears.
I cried for sure.
Uh,
Yeah, I was like, yeah, it's so good. Y'all listening, please play this game. It's so good. It's funny that because we had the same exact experience. Like, I didn't go back and choose other options because I wanted to know what you um got like as an ending, but I also don't want to. Like I'm very
yeah.
satisfied with the ending that I got. And it's one of those things where like I don't think I'm going to pick up this game again simply because I just loved it so much and I'm so satisfied with my playthrough of it that it's just going to live on my Switch as like a nice game that I have and I will definitely recommend it to other people. So it's so fun to hear that you had basically the same experience that I did.
I love that too because I think we have very different play styles in general of games, but that's really
Totally.
cool. I like that we had the same impressions about certain things
Yeah.
and oh God, I hope they make a sequel.
Me too.
This is my plea out to the developers. Please, like the writing, I can't stress how much they like really knocked it out of the park with the writing.
It's such a good story. And you know what's funny? And I had this question for you earlier, so I'll ask you now. But I had seen Beacon Pines like on the Steam store, I think. And I remember looking at it and being like, oh, I don't actually love that art style. Like, I don't think that art style is typically a game that I would reach for, just like with the animals and everything. I was like, I don't think that's a game for me. But then I had heard that the story was so, so good. And I honestly didn't buy it until I saw you playing it on stream and I was like, "Oh, I think because Emily's playing this, I really need to give it a go." So I actually got the game because of you and I was interested in it before, but then when I saw you streaming it, I knew I had to have it. So I wanted to know how you found out about it basically and what kind of interested you in picking it up and also choosing to stream it.
That's so funny that you say that because I had the exact same reaction. I had seen the game, I don't know, maybe on Twitter, maybe it had popped up occasionally on Steam, and I had the
Mhm.
same reaction to the art where I was like, I don't know how I feel about them all being animals, and like the art style is cute, but I don't know if this is a game for me. And then I actually got a press copy of the game for free to play on stream, and I was like, I read because I got access to the key for it. I figured, okay, let me dig in more. I read about it, and said, you know what, let's give it a go. Let's see, and if we all, however we feel about it, I don't have to stream it to the end, but
Yeah.
I mean, almost immediately I was completely hooked. Yeah, you know what?
Yes.
Immediately, the first scene, I was like, okay, yeah, you have my whole heart game.
I love that, and I also love that you tried like something new on stream because I feel like we both agree that maybe that's not a game I would expect you to stream.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so seeing you do that I thought was really cool, and I hope it showed you that like you really can just do anything because we're here for the Emily on twitch.tv/ a specific egg. But I do think that it was just like seeing you play it and me not thinking like that would be a game that you would normally stream. I was like, oh, I already know like visual novels are totally my thing. Art style, maybe not. Visual novels, though, I love, so I was interested anyway. And then seeing that you had obviously endorsed it, I was like, I gotta play. So I owe it all to you for the experience, and I do appreciate it because yeah, I definitely don't think I've played a game like this before, and it will probably end up in my like top 10 or top 5 of even of the year that I've played this year. So,
Absolutely same. Same, same,
do
same.
you feel comfortable giving it like a rating overall? What would you rate it?
I've been thinking about it because I am gonna I'm working on a YouTube review of it and
Nice.
I mean 5 out of 5. I can't think of a single thing that I would change except that I would like more, please.
I feel the same. Yeah, I also would give it a 5 out of 5, and I highly recommend it to everybody. I just think any gamer would love it, even if it's not something you would typically pick up. I think that it's just a great story, and if you like to read books, it's basically like reading a book but more interactive. Love that about games, and it is like it does really echo the storybook vibes. Also wanted to say really quick that at the end, like with the candle moment, I loved that so much. I got the chills and I was like, they really just sealed it all together perfectly.
Wait, what was the candle moment?
Like,
I'm
when the
forgetting.
book it like zooms out and the book
Oh,
and it's like the end and the book closes and there's a candle
yeah.
lit and it like flickers. I was like, yes.
It was so good.
It was great. I'm so glad that you liked it. Do you feel like you want to share with the listeners which game we're going to be covering on our next episode?
I would freaking love to share with the listeners what we're going to be playing next. Um, Next up, we're playing a game that I think I consider to be both of our white whale in some ways. We've
Yeah,
both tried to play this at least once each. Um, and I want to like this game so bad, and I'm so hoping that, by giving it another shot, we both wind up loving it. This game is called 100 Days. It is a winemaking simulator by Broken Arms Games, released in 2021. I can read a little bit about it from their site. 100 Days is a game of choice, nostalgia, and winemaking. Would you leave your day or your day-to-day life to get back to your family roots, move in the countryside, and make choices for a business you don't even know where it starts?
so interesting. And yes, Emily's completely correct in that it's our white whale of the game because we both, I remember, I think maybe I was the one that told you about it. I don't want to give myself credit for that, but I think
I
I
think you were.
was
Yeah.
because I was like, I need somebody else who likes wine to play this game, and I'm gonna play this game. Like, I bought it right when it came out. And then I opened it and I played it for 30 minutes and I was like, what the heck? But 2021, kind of a while ago for me anyway, in my relationship with games. So I think that maybe I could revisit it and maybe even enjoy it and learn a couple new things about wine making. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad that we picked that one for our next episode.
I feel the same way. I feel like I'm going into it just knowing a little bit more about what to expect. I think I had different expectations walking in the first time. And I'm excited. And, at very least, it's an excuse for us to drink wine while we record next time.
That's right. I'll be there and I look forward to it. And thank you so much, Emily, for discussing Beacon Pines with me. And I really look forward to our next episode.
Thank you, Kate. I can't wait. No Small Games is produced by Kate and Emily with editing by Claudia Escobar. Find us on Twitter at No Small Games or email us at nosmallgames@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitch at A Specific Egg.
And Cater Blossom.
All episodes of No Small Games are available at nosmallgames.com, and you can also listen on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you love to find your podcasts.